Hello, and welcome to Brand Clarity by Visions to Images, where we focus on strategy and business development for entrepreneurs at all different levels through branding and digital marketing techniques. Susie Liberatore is the founder and art director of Visions to Images Creative Services, LLC. For the last decade, she has personally been instrumental in bridging gaps between the global digital market and neighborhood locations for some of the biggest brands around. Growth is possible for even a single location with the right professional branding techniques and Susie's signature strategies of Visions to Images. Stand out from your competitors and bring your visions to life while watching your sales skyrocket. Your host for this is Susie Liberatore, owner of Visions to Images. Today on the podcast, I have Aurora Gregory, and she is a speaker coach for entrepreneurs as well as a business strategist. She helps people get confident and happy and get on stages and speak. And I met her through an event, and we've been chatting for so long, and I'm super excited to have her on. Thanks for coming on.
Susie, I'm so glad to be on the show with you today, and I'm looking forward to talking about public speaking. And I remember when we met, I remember it so well, and it was just so great to connect for the first time in person. So often that doesn't happen, and that was true for us. So great to be here today.
Yes. And it's so funny because we were just talking before this about meeting people online and then meeting them in person. And it's so funny. I was joking last time I was at a networking event. I was like, parents always tell us don't meet strangers online. And here we are in this digital world meeting people online in real life. Oh.
It's so true. Like, sometimes we all have to laugh about, some of us who are, when we were young, we didn't do things like talk to strangers. And now we are actually intentionally engaging with strangers. So
I know it. Isn't it crazy?
It's crazy.
Yes. All right. Well, tell us how you got started in this field.
I really fell in love with public speaking as a 14-year-old. When I was 14, I was in junior high, and I was a finalist in a speech contest. I didn't win that speech contest. It's funny, I think back on that, and I can still remember the exact moment when I did something that I was pretty sure cost me the win in that competition. But what I learned back then was the power of being the person at the microphone and how powerful it can be to have the attention of an audience, to be able to tell them a great story, and to be able to move them with that story. And so I continued to, be someone who was just always kind of interested in public speaking. When I did, when you have a group project in, high school or in college, and someone has to get up and present the project, that was always me. And so I just always loved public speaking, and I loved the power of it. When I transitioned into my corporate career and working and becoming a consultant, I started working with executives and helping them get on stages so that they could share their business story and be able to do that in front of audiences that wanted to hear from them, that were either filled with their actual customers or people that needed to be their customers, and watching them use the power of the stage, the power of being the person at the microphone, and using that to build their business. So I've loved public speaking since I was 14. I still now get a chance to do that. And I love helping business owners find their microphone so that they can build their businesses using public speaking too.
So tell me how you kind of help these people.
So one of the things that is so important, that I think, what makes people a little bit nervous about public speaking is, well, what do I say when I get to, if I'm on stage and I'm at the microphone, what do I say? What am I supposed to talk about? And one of the things that I love doing is helping them define what their story is. What is it that you actually have to talk about? I think for a lot of us, and for a lot of business owners, they've got all of the things that they do in their mind, and it feels overwhelming, the idea of being able to take all of that and shove it into a 20 or 30-minute presentation. So what I do is I talk with business owners, and I take them through what I call a deep dive experience. And we talk about okay, so tell me about your business, and tell me about the people that you serve and how you help them. Tell me about how you got into the work that you do, or why you chose to open the business that you did. And we take all of that and we shape it into a story. One of my particular sweet spots is helping people frame up what I call their pitch content. It's that description of what you can talk about that you share with someone who has a stage that you want to get on. And in shaping that pitch content, narrowing it down to what I call the tight 200 words that describe what you can share from the stage, all of a sudden you take all of the things that are swirling in your mind that you do in your business, and you boil it down to something that's very succinct, that covers just a very specific area or problem. And now you have a way to talk about it. When someone asks you, well, what can you talk about? You can describe it in what I call a great mouthful of words. You have a way to cover it, and you have a way to pitch yourself for a stage. So I help people figure that part out. With a colleague a few years ago, I co-authored a book called Get Picked, and it's all about how we create the most amazing proposals so that people can get on stage. And so I take the strategy that my colleague and I developed, and I use it to help business owners define that same type of content so that they can get on stages themselves.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think that I don't really know. I feel like I could probably identify what I would talk about, but I feel like my big thing is screwing up and or stumbling or not having like a script in that kind of a way. Do you oftentimes run into those situations with people when you're working with them?
Most people have that concern. They're concerned about like, okay, so how am I going to deliver this? And I think that early on when we're newer speakers, you kind of have to get some of those bumpy presentations experiences kind of out of your system. Anytime you have a new presentation, I have the same experience. And as I said, I've been speaking since I was 14. When I have a new presentation that I'm giving, the first few times I give it can feel a little bumpy and a little awkward, and that's okay. What really helps to smooth out that bumpiness is repetition. I call it just getting in your reps. As you get more and more comfortable with your content, more and more comfortable with what I call your signature presentation, the thing that you talk about the most, those bumps go away. A lot of people are also worried about things like what I call vocal tics, saying or they all worry about that. And we have those vocal tics when we don't know where we're going to go next with what we have to say. I do it. We may even hear a little bit.
Like I do it all the time, right? And it's just secondary to me in a lot of ways.
Right.
Like I could sit here and be like, I'm going to try to fix it. But also I know what I'm going to say sometimes, but it's like, you got to have like that transition, I think, too. Exactly.
And when we're giving that presentation, the more times we give it, we work out those transitions. And so you won't notice that you do it as much. So that's what I encourage people to do. Figure out what that presentation is and then get your reps in. Sometimes it's a matter of doing it in smaller groups, or maybe it's doing it, in front of family or friends, or maybe just practicing it yourself. Getting those repetitions in will allow you to get comfortable with the wording. You'll get used to your own phrasing, and it will get a lot easier and a lot smoother. You'll enjoy your delivery a lot more. But you got to be willing to be not great at the start in order to become a great public speaker.
I like it. Thank you. Thanks for sharing all of that. Because what would they even speak at?
Well, that is a terrific question. And one of the things that I love about public speaking is that when you are a scheduled speaker, you are when you step to that microphone and you get in front of the audience, you're immediately in front of people who are warmly ready to listen to you. Mm-hmm. They knew they were coming to that meeting or that gathering. They knew that you were they knew that you were going to be the speaker. They knew ahead of time. And what's great is that they're primed and ready to listen to you. You don't have to convince them to listen to you. They're ready. So I love local speaking events for local business owners for so many reasons. You think about going to what I love to, most people belong to their local chamber. Yeah. You go to the monthly mixer, right? And there's, maybe 50, 60, maybe 100 people at the mixer, which is awesome. Going to a mixer event like that, you might be able to meaningfully have conversation with maybe 4 or 5 people across maybe the 2 hours that the event happens. But when you're the speaker at that mixer or at the local, like the lunch and learn meeting that the chamber has, or some other, maybe you're the speaker for the month for the service club in town, right, you get a chance to meaningfully connect with as many people that are there. If there's 100 people there, You get to meaningfully connect with them all at one time from the microphone. Public speaking is so efficient in terms of building connection. And so that's one of the reasons I love it, because you couldn't possibly do that. If you went to every mixer for 12 months, you still wouldn't be able to engage with them. So public speaking is so efficient. It's why I would love to see local business owners make a specific effort to include speaking in the marketing that they do. Because once you get in front of those, of your co-leaders in the community, your co-business owners, you have a chance to build relationships with them. You can build partnerships, you can build co-promotions, you can do things to support their businesses. You can talk with them about what you do and have them do things to support you. You get a chance to build connections that will in time build your business. And that's so important because we all need different streams of support. We can't just rely on, if we're a franchise owner, we can't just rely on the national advertising to draw people into our doors. We need to be able to do things on our own that are in support of that, but that really draw on local relationships to make things happen. And being on the stage, being the one at the microphone, which is a powerful position, allows you to be able to showcase what you're about, share a bit of your personality, share a little bit about what is motivating you as a business owner. And then the people in the audience who that resonates with will be naturally drawn to talk to you as you come off the stage.
100%. Yeah.
Don't you agree? It's like, that's what you want. And it all happens because you were willing to step up there. And it's, like I said, at a local event, if you just attend, and I encourage you to attend and build relationships there, but if you just attend, you could easily miss meeting someone who you just didn't come across that night. Whereas from the stage, that same person gets to say, hey, I really loved what Susie had to say. Like, I love the motivation she has with her business. I want to make sure we exchange cards so that we can have a coffee next week and talk more about what we could potentially do together.
Hey there, I want to interrupt this episode with a quick message. If you're listening to this podcast episode and want to learn about branding your franchise or small business, then go to brandingbridge.com. That's branding-bridge.com.
Right, 100%. I love it. And I love that you talked about the local visibility. That's one of the biggest things that we talk about with all of our local owned businesses, especially franchises and franchisees. That local visibility is so important. And I remember when I first joined the Chamber of Commerce and we did like these little 30-second commercials around the table and we had to stand up, and I was like, oh my God, I got to stand up. And now I got to say 30 seconds and right. And there's all this anxiety, but over time, like those little pieces can help you get to where you need to be to speak. And absolutely. I have found that when I have done local speaking engagements, you're absolutely right. They come up afterwards to you. And they also ask questions, like when there's questions, when everybody can hear it. And that drives and creates your visibility and your brand awareness right then and there. And I think that's important. And I think that, going to the events are good. And like you said, you're only going to connect with probably 4 or 5 genuine people. I mean, I went to a speed networking event a couple of weeks ago, and I want to say there was probably 40 people there, maybe, right? I have 40 business cards. Am I going to email everyone? Okay, let's narrow down who I'm going to really email, and then who's really going to book, right? So, it's not always I'm going to book just to have them buy from me. It's to build those connections. But when you're trying to get with those people and they're like, who is she and what does she want? It's way harder than, okay, Susie spoke. I want to connect with her more because I want to hear more about her story, like you're saying. Exactly, a powerful tool. I mean, even on podcasts and stuff, you're not speaking on a stage, but it's all the same of growing that connection and that visibility.
Absolutely. And, I love that you mentioned that experience of being, say, at a chamber meeting and going around and introducing, having to introduce yourself and stand up and basically give like a mini speech. And, I'm just going to give a quick tip to the audience on how to kind of prepare for something like that. And you can use this anytime someone asks you to introduce yourself. decide on the three most important things that you want someone to know about you. It could be, so if you have three things, maybe the first one might be, once you get past your name and the name of your business, tell them why you got into your business. A quick note on why you got into the business that you did. And then two, what types of connections are you looking to make, or what is it that you can offer to the group, something that you're interested in? And then third, tell them something personal about yourself. Do you play in the local softball league? Do you and your family love to go camping? Is whatever your favorite give them some kind of personal taste of who you are as a person, not just a business owner, but as a person. Yep. You can just use those three things to define what it is that you can say about yourself when you stand up. It'll make it so much easier. Like, it takes the stress off when the host of the meeting gets up and says, okay, we're all going to go around and we're going to, let's everybody stand up and introduce themselves. And of course, everybody, like, the panic sets in, like, oh my God, like, what am I going to say? Right. But if you pre-plan across those three things, you'll be able to do it with a lot of confidence, and you won't dread it as much because you'll already know. And you can do it. Like, you probably take a break and, go sit in a Starbucks or something. It's like, okay, well, what would I say? Just jot it down, file it away in your mind, and you'll be good to go anytime you have to.
I love that. I love it. And I think that when you talk about a personal connection, that is so key, because that's going to make somebody remember you. Right. And come to you and build that connection way more than, oh, Susie's just another marketing person, right? Right. Or it's just another speaking business strategist, right? So there's all of these things, like when you really get to know the person, you're going to be like, oh, I know more about Susie and I really like her now. Maybe I'll keep her in mind or pass her a referral, right? So they're going to remember those things because of that personalization. Exactly. And I tell the same thing with franchise owners and everybody else. You have to have your own personal story and your own uniqueness to stand out in a crowded area. And that's true of no matter how you do it, whether it's on social, public speaking, website, etc. So that's a huge component. And I love that you touched on it. Thank you.
Yeah. So important. And I think it's those personal touches that really humanize us. We were chatting before we got started today about social media and, what it can be and sometimes what it can't be. But I think when we allow people to kind of get to know just a couple personal things about us, I know, one of the things that's in my personal bio is that I love classic movies. And I love, when people come up to me, it's like, oh, what's your classic film? It's like, it creates this connection point, gives you another reason to get to know each other. And ultimately, isn't that what relationships are about? Like, we get to know each other. I know, after we met at that conference event, we made a point to, jump on a Zoom call, and we just took 30 minutes to have a virtual cup of coffee together. And we got to know each other. We learned about each other's businesses. We learned a little bit about each other personally. And that gave us that connection, and we've been able to build it. Now, look, here we are having a great chat just for your podcast audience. And so those types of things are possible. And again, it's really just a matter of you being willing to take the risk, because I'm not going to lie, public speaking has, it does feel risky while you're, getting comfortable with it. And yes, people have all of their fears, all the things that you think could happen on stage. I'm not going to lie to you. Yes, they could actually happen. But I will tell you, whether it's a coughing attack, whether it's the battery going out in the cordless microphone, like all the things that you can imagine, just want you to know there is a fix for all of them. Your audience, I promise you, did not show up to see something bad happen on stage. Our fear is about, something bad is going to happen. I'm going to forget my place. I'm going to have a coughing attack. Like, your audience is for you. They are never there. No one woke up on any morning and said, oh, cannot wait to get to the lunch and learn today so I can see a train wreck on stage. Nobody wakes up saying that. They say, oh, I've got the lunch and learn today. I can't wait to hear Susie and everything she's got to share about marketing. And so if something happens to you on stage, and it will happen to me last year, had a horrible coughing attack on stage, it will happen. You work it out. You step back to the microphone, and you just keep going. Trust me, your audience is very sympathetic when things don't go as planned. They're always for you. They're never against you. So banish that idea from your mind that somehow something awful will happen on stage and it will just end in disaster. It won't, I promise you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You shared so much great information and I really enjoyed everything. And if people want to find you, how can they find you?
Probably the best way to get in touch with me is to find me on Instagram. That's where I kind of hang out. Also on Facebook. So look for Aurora Gregory. And then if you are looking to kind of dig into public speaking and you're looking for a couple of tools to help share what you can talk about, one of the things that you might want to create is what we call a speaker one sheet. It's just a fancy name for all of the things that you can talk about and shares a little bit about you. If you would be interested in creating something like that and want a free checklist on what should go into that speaker one sheet, I've got a great guide that you can grab if you go to getpickedtospeak.com/checklist. You can grab that checklist for free and you'll end up on my email list. I send a lot of great content about once a week. I'd love to have you.
Awesome. I love it.
Good stuff. I'm so glad we did this, Susie. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for listening in on today's Brand Clarity episode with Susie Liberatore. 2 things. First and foremost, please, if you liked this episode, please subscribe and leave some positive reviews. Also, don't forget to sign up for Stop Sending Your Customers to the Competition and get my insider secrets to compelling branding that converts. You can find that at branding-bridge.com. It's a free workbook for you to check out right now. All of the branding techniques and strategies that I use for my paying clients.